people weren't just stranded on the roads. You may think New York's subway system is all underground, but long portions are above ground. So imagine being stuck in an unheated, crowded subway train for hours on end during the height of the blizzard. Lindsay Davis has a story of the subway rides that seemed like they would never end.
Come on!
Many New Yorkers run out of patience if their subway train is a few minutes late. So imagine the frustration on board this Q train when Sunday's blizzard held these Straphangers captive for 4 hours. In the midst of frigid temperatures, things got rather heated.
Let's go!
Getting from point A to point B proved even more difficult for the A train.
No heat, no nothing. We're not going nowhere.
Just after midnight, many passengers stranded at New York's JFK airport by canceled flights, then boarded the A train. Daily News reporter Aaron Durkin was among the hundreds on the Manhattan-bound train when power went out on the third rail.
The conductor basically said, this train is completely dead. It has no power.
It stopped above ground near the Aqueduct racetrack station. They were told help was on the way, but then the rescue train got stuck, and they were stranded all night long.
No bathrooms, no food, no water, no heat for most of the time.
Transit officials say they did have access to the bathroom.
We assured the people were safe on the train. I know it wasn't comfortable.
7 uncomfortable hours later, the passengers were finally released and then took their chances on foot. For Good Morning America, Lindsay Davis, ABC News, New York.
And we have 3 of the stranded A-train passengers with us exclusively this morning, Susan, Dave, and 8-year-old Alexander Jutt. So your morning is going a lot better this morning
oh, yes,
than
it
last.
Certainly is.
All right, let's go back in time a little bit. So you're on the flight. It's canceled when you're on board.
Correct.
You can't get your car out of long-term parking. You're from Scarsdale,
right.
New York. So you
right.
take the train because you can't get a hotel by the airport?
That's right, and there was no other way out of Kennedy Airport except to take this shuttle bus to the subway.
And so you're on the subway above ground, then what happened, Susan?
Then the train stopped. Shortly after getting on, it stopped.
Shortly after getting on?
Yes.
And were they communicating with you what was going on or how long it was going to take?
Initially they did. Initially it was clear they were really making an effort to try to move the train. I think the employees wanted to get home as much as we did. But increasingly as the hours went by, we heard less and less.
And Dave, I saw you and Susan both when we heard the gentleman say there was access to bathrooms. You guys...
Where would that have been?
There are no bathrooms on a subway train.
No, so that wasn't the case. You know, New Yorkers get a rap of not being the most congenial people at times. It's a bad rap. What was the atmosphere like on board, Dave?
Well, everybody was pretty friendly, I think, for the most part. You always think of a what-if situation, though, in a situation like that, because they're not letting you off the train, you know, and those doors were closed, and you can't leave.
And you could see the platform?
Yes, we could.
We could see the platform.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get to it. No. So, Alexander, were you scared at all?
No, not really. At first I was wondering, like, well, what the heck is happening?
Why aren't we moving, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I just figured, well, subways do work better underground, and well, there was a heck lot of snow above ground, so I just thought, well, go with the flow. Eventually it'll stop.
Are you sure you're 8 years? Are you sure you're in New York? Are you sure you're 8 years old?
Yeah.
No, but he was sleeping most of the time too.
Most of the time he was, yeah. We had him bundled up because it was quite cold.
Were there some people that sometimes take charge on when there's a situation like this? Did you have some leaders on the train?
There were more extroverted people, some more than others, but for the most part, everybody really was very well behaved and cooperative, and we had people from all over the world. There was one fellow from Australia, there was another guy from India who was trying to get home to India, but everybody really did the best that they could.
And you said there were some young people on board that were trying to keep everything light
and boisterous.
Yeah, so they tried to keep everything pretty lively. They were having a pretty, I don't want to say they were having a good time, they were making the best out of it. It was helping things a bit.
So what happened when the train finally is moving, and you know that
Well,
you're
it lurched forward a couple times. Everybody went, yay! And then it would stop. And then it's we were attempting to rectify the situation. Please wait, you know, and then we would wait. And then it would lurch forward, and then yay! And then everybody would stop.
so it's a little anticlimactic when it actually started going
When it
again.
finally moved, we were just, okay, sure, let's see if it really moves this time.
I have to tell you, Rob, a little story. That when they finally discharged us 6 hours later, and we were out standing out on the platform because they couldn't, the train was very long. So they discharged us. A train worker was standing out holding a cup of coffee. Now this is after we'd been waiting and waiting all night long, and he was drinking a cup of coffee, and that cup of coffee looked so good.
I bet it did.
And we said, well, anyway, he probably didn't have anything to do with our situation at all, but we said, boy, that coffee, could you get us some coffee? And he said, no.
People were trying to help as best they could.
he just did what he
I know
could.
Alexander kept you company too.
Yes, he
I'm
did.
glad you all were safe
Thank you.
and that you're here with us now.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
very
much.
much.
Thanks for sharing our story.
Thank you.
We appreciate that
You're
very much.